A woman was riding her bike home and the chain fell off. She angrily threw the bike to the ground. A man quickly picked the bike up and directly grabbed the lawnmower nearby, placing it on the workbench, preparing to turn it into a motorized bike capable of reaching speeds of 180. After removing the drive rod, he took the drive components off the engine. Then he secured the parts in a vise, making it easier to knock out the bearings inside. Afterward, he used a marker to draw a clear circular guide on the surface of the part, and once again secured the part in place. Then he skillfully picked up the angle grinder and carefully cut along the marked line to remove the excess. Next, he reinserted the bearings back in their place, pulled out a gear, and carefully slid it onto the shaft, using a welding torch to firmly weld it in place. The entire process was smooth and seamless. With this, the modified drive components could be successfully installed back on the engine. But this was just one step. To create the engine's support frame, he removed the engine's original bracket, carefully placing it on the angle iron, and used a marker to draw clear marks where the holes should be. Next, he expertly used a hole cutter to drill along the marked points. After the screw holes were drilled, he cut this section of angle iron from the larger piece, then placed a grinding disc between the two screw holes, drawing an arc, and precisely cutting along the mark, cutting out a perfect arc-shaped notch. Then he welded the angle iron to the support frame made of metal bars. Once welded, the engine and the support frame could be firmly fixed together. At this point, the major components were completed. Next, he removed the brake pads from the rear wheel and used an angle grinder to cut and separate the brake pad from the outer iron ring. He connected it to the gear. After securing it, he reattached the gear to the rear wheel, and the fixed gear rear wheel was placed back in the rear fork. Then he tested if the rear wheel turned properly. Afterward, he reinstalled the rear frame and tightened every screw. Since the original brake pad had been removed, he had to install a new one to ensure the braking system functioned. Then he placed the engine on the rear frame while threading the chain through the rear wheel gear and securely connected the chain. Once the engine was properly positioned, he welded the engine's support frame onto the rear frame to make the entire structure more solid. Then he modified the front brake control to act as the throttle, and with that, the motorized bike was complete. So what do you think of his creativity?